what did the media start doing? They started saying, there's this brave soldier, the ghost of Kiev, is just flying through the sky, taking out all of these Russian planes. And previously, if they truly had the control that they once had, Josh, they would have had a real jet plane up there blowing up other planes and having them fall out of the sky into the cities of Ukraine so people could catch it on their cell phones so they could push this propaganda. They'd have no problem doing any of that. But they had to use a video game footage to make up and prop up this ghost of Kiev. They literally used video game footage. And then they moved on to the next one. They said, Snake Island, the Russians were going to take it over, and they refused to surrender, so they died on their swords. And they put this huge glorification story up there. Come to find out, nope, no one died. They all went home to their wives that night, and it was all bullshit Fugazi story. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you don't know this, and it's the same thing with the truther community, people that are constantly searching for the truth and constantly searching for what's really going on right now. Like, it's very similar. There's so many people that are in the trenches and researching so deeply in what's going on, and they have their finger on the pulse of the situation the best that they possibly can based on the information that's being given to us. And we forget that there's so many people that are just realizing the corruption now and just realizing the evil now. And they have so many questions and figuring things out. And you have these veteran people that, think that they know everything about everything, that they come at these people. They're like, well, how do you not know this already? Like, you're an idiot. You're a shill because you don't believe exactly how I believe. And I'm like, you guys are missing the boat here. Like, you are I couldn't imagine realizing this corruption now because of the gas prices, because of the war that they're trying to push, because of Joe Biden's cognitive function, the indictments on Donald Trump. Like, I couldn't imagine just like that hitting me like a Mack truck and be like, oh shit, like everything is corrupt, everything is evil, or finding out about the pedophilia through Epstein. Like, yeah, I couldn't imagine that. And then for me to come up there and say, well, how do you not know this? And spew word vomit all the things that I know on them and expect them to understand is silly. And it's never going to help anybody. And it's the same thing with your relationship with God and Christians. They do the same exact thing. They just word vomit on you like you're supposed to already be this perfectly molded Christian that knows everything about the Bible and about God. Yeah.
Have you ever worked out, like gone to the gym, been a gym rat or anything like that?
I'm going to the gym right after this. I go almost every day.
I never assume at all, unless you're like completely.
Well, I used to be a professional MMA fighter. I go to the gym fairly often. It's been a while. I just started going back to the gym a year ago after my car accident.
So I have a question for you. Shoot. What day did you become strong?
It's a good question. I'm still not back to where I once was. Like,
exactly. But nobody has an answer for that. It's like, what day did you, what? That's a retarded question. Yeah. So what day did you become a Christian? What day did you start learning everything? It's like, I don't know. It's a process. Yep. And some people start the process. How many people have you ever talked to that said, oh, I don't pay attention to politics? Your own father says he doesn't talk about it or anything.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a very common thing.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't find out that my aunt and uncle who raised me from 6th grade to the end of 11th grade, that they were Democrats, Hillary voting Democrats. It made so much sense.
Now you're looking back, you're like, oh, I get it.
That's why when I became older, that I realized they weren't that smart. And they both are 6-figure earners. I mean, they do make.
Yeah, you don't have to be smart to make money.
No, and I learned that, and that makes me feel even.
When I started making money, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm like, it's just, and a lot of it is your mindset. It's just like anything. It's like lifting weights. I'm teaching, my wife how to work out. Now my niece she's my best friend. He's my brother. My family are not blood, and his adopted daughter is my niece, and so we're teaching her to work out. And I told him, when you're spotting people, because my wife would spot her and she'd help her. I'm like, don't. It's like, just put your hand there.
Yep,
just touch it. I said, it's not a lie when we say 80% of working out is in the mind. You know, if that's why sometimes you can lift really well and sometimes you can't. I have to work around if I'm around attractive women, I can lift more. My wife knows this. I have to. I was like, well, it was a horrible workout because, you know, I wasn't around because not only is it because, well, it naturally builds. People say, well, it builds your testosterone. It's not really that. It's because I like looking at pretty women. Simple. And so my mind's distracted.
I think it's also, you know, going down to our core of impressing women. Yeah. You know, that's part of our men's genetics. It goes back to cavemen. Yeah. You know, you see a pretty woman, you want to be the big, strong, powerful guy in the gym. Yeah. It makes sense.
They make commercials about that where that guy with a big belly is there, then attract a girl and he goes like this, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
We just want what especially if you're alpha. I mean, now you're getting guys that don't really care. They like looking weak and stuff. But
yes,
but in the gym, you'll notice you see a lot of people that work out with their ego. You know, they're lifting these heavy weights and they're doing it wrong because they're going to look like they can lift heavy weights. And I'm sitting there laughing because here I am. I could probably when I weighed 185, I maxed. That was when I cared about maxing, and I maxed at 260. And I don't care about maxing anymore. So I have no idea how much I lift, but I don't lift nearly as heavy, but I'm stronger than I was because I don't work out with my ego anymore. I do a lot of reps. I mean, when I'm doing curls, I only work out one body part or one muscle group per day. You know, like these are tricep days, these are bicep days, these are, you know, shoulders. And that's the way I do it. Well, on bicep day, I will do curls and I'll start out with 15 pounds dumbbells and I will do it 100 times. And then I go up 5 pounds and do as much as I can, go up 5 pounds. And I'll just go that. And then sometimes I'll start going back down, you know, until I'll go up all the way to 45 or 50 pounds. And by that time, my arm is just killing me.
That's the thing that people don't realize. Being able to do one really heavy rep one time is not going to build as much muscle as doing a bunch of lighter reps a ton of times. And you're 100% right by doing that. Like it was a big ego check for me at the gym when I got back after 6 years of not doing anything. I had a lot of muscle atrophy. And I've gotten rhabdomyolysis before from overexertion working out. And I ended up in the hospital almost on dialysis and almost died. So I'm very conscious of that. But going into the gym, I was a very high level MMA fighter. I trained with some of the best fighters in the world. I don't know if you follow UFC at all, but you know, I used to get punched in the face by Amanda Nunes, Jim Miller, Charlie Brenneman, Frankie Edgar, John Jones. I've trained with Chris Weidman. I've trained with some of the best fighters in the world. And got my ass kicked. Don't get me wrong. I got worked every time. But I was a very high level athlete and I was strong. I was in shape. And I was able to work out very intensely being that high level an athlete. And it wasn't until I got hurt and I couldn't work out at all. And I went into a really deep, dark depression. It was very difficult for me for many years because everything I loved was taken away from me. And it wasn't just that. Like the whole reason why I wanted to be successful in life was not because I wanted the money. It was because I wanted the time to be able to travel to Thailand and train in Thailand, to go to Brazil and train jiu-jitsu in Brazil, surf all over the world and do all of these things that are very physical and physically demanding that I probably won't ever be able to do ever again. And it was a very, very heavy depression for me. So I sat on the couch and I just ate myself. That was my guilty pleasure, was just eating like garbage, you know, fast food. And because I couldn't do anything. Yeah. And when I finally got back into the gym, it wasn't because I'm physically able to. It was the rest of my body was wearing down because I wasn't taking care of it, and I was getting other injuries because I wasn't taking care of it, and I was feeling worse and worse and worse. And it got to the point where it was like, if I don't do something and I don't take control of this, it's only going to get worse. So I had to make a decision. And I walked into the gym and it was I was embarrassed because I'm lifting so light. Like it was a very big ego check. And I realized that this is actually going to be a lot more beneficial for me anyway than lifting a lot heavier and doing those. I know I wasn't really a heavy lifter to begin with. I did a lot of high intensity, like tire flips and, sledgehammers.
For your back if you have back problems.
Yeah, I have neck problems. But so I used to do all these high intensity stuff, and I was, going there lifting really, really, really light. And, now I still lift, I can handle heavier weights. I still lift a lot lighter than I could. And I do reps. Like I'll do 15 reps per set. And then my last 2 reps, I'll rep out. Like I'll go till failure. So you get that really strong pump.
Yeah.
But, instead of, grabbing 100-pound dumbbells and doing 100-pound incline presses with the dumbbells, I'm going to grab 60s, 65s, and I'm going to do 15 reps per set and max and rep out and do 20 to 30 reps to failure. And my arms will be burning, killing. My chest will be killing. Everything will be on fire. And it was a good thing that I had the ego check. But a lot of people, they want to go in there and they just want to look like the biggest, strongest guy in the world.
Yeah. I, when I do bench press now, and I don't do straight bar, but it's dumbbells, because you work, and I tell my wife it's because you work your stabilizer muscles at the same
time. That's why I went dumbbells.
More. I was like, but when I lift, I was like, everybody tells you, any bodybuilder will tell you squeeze your chest when you get up, right? Well, it's actually not that easy to do. You never know if you're squeezing it hard enough. And so what I do is when I'm lifting, I turn my weights like that, and it forces a squeeze. And it's also harder to lift heavier weights. So I do 55 pounds, and I do 15 reps. I do 4-15, like that and stuff. But it makes your chest like grow. But I learned that from my injury, and that actually goes to, back to my belief system. Nothing happens to you. It happens for you.
Bingo.
That injury, if you wouldn't have got hurt, you wouldn't have checked your ego.
I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be doing the show. I wouldn't be on this journey that I'm on right now. Like
there's law enforcement. I wouldn't have, if I hadn't dealt with that corrupt city that I was working with, that was being paid, that was bought and paid for by Tyson Foods, I wouldn't have, I was a sergeant dealing with that stuff. I wouldn't have gotten out of law enforcement. I probably would have stayed, and my wife would have to work because I couldn't afford to have kids. A lot of things would happen. If my second wife wouldn't have cost me $500,000, I wouldn't have my daughter. It's just a lot. If I wouldn't have had the injuries, like I've been working out since I was 10 years old. I always had it in my mind. I didn't want to be weak, but it's the way I grew up. But I had my first major injury at 15. So what would happen is I'd work out, get hurt, can't work for a while, work out, get hurt, can't work for a while. And it's been that way my whole life. And so I keep on having to restart, rebuild. I never get to see an end result of anything. I mean, this is the most in shape I've been in my whole entire life because I've actually been able to work out
and stay consistent.
For 6 months, which has not happened. Because I always end up hurt. I've got elbow surgery. I, was supposed to have hand surgery, wrist surgery, neck surgery, but I choose not to do that because back surgery and elbow surgeries were enough. But it was getting hurt. It was that badness. It was that brokenness that taught me more than anything. It wasn't somebody bitching at me, telling me that I was doing things wrong, that I needed to do it this way. I didn't have mentors. And so, I learned the best way to learn is by watching people to see how they're doing, what their life is like. And if they're always telling other people they're doing it wrong, they've got issues, and that was my witness to Christianity is there's a lot of Christians out there that are telling everybody else that they're doing it wrong and saying, this is the way you should be. You're not the right kind of Christian. There's over 34,000 denominations of Christianity, and that's based on the 1611 King James version of the Bible. It's like, if you start breaking that stuff down, it's
like, intense.
I was like, do you realize that as soon as Jesus died on the cross, Christianity, his followers broke up. They started believing different things, Why do we not see all these other disciples? Why their writings didn't make it in the Bible? Why don't we have Mary's stuff? She was closest to Jesus than anybody. It says that in the Bible. Why don't we have it? Well, because Orthodox Christianity that said men were above women, women were to be helpers of men. They didn't want that in there. It's like, there's all these politics and stuff. And so what I try to do is I'm not trying to tell you that you're wrong, that the King James Version of the Bible is wrong. I'm not even saying that. And I do have other people I had an Aramaic Christian minister on, they have a completely different Bible based on the Aramaic culture, which was Jesus. The Italians didn't know anything about that culture. The English didn't know anything about that culture, but yet they were translating everything, even though they didn't even understand the culture. But even though I have that, I'm still not telling you you're wrong, but I'm giving you access to hearing a different perspective. I don't want you to believe what I believe. I want you to believe what you believe. And that means not use indoctrination, because there's a lot of indoctrination. We're all indoctrinated, when we're young. It's some of us
day one.
Some of us just break the mold. We start seeing stuff and start questioning stuff, and it just goes from there. At one time you believed the government was the government. They were the good guys. It's America.
Yeah. Until 9/11. Yeah. I was really young, but yeah.
I didn't start until Obama, because I was a deputy and people were asking me if I was going to take their guns away. I was like, what the hell are you talking about? We're going to be protecting your rights.
Your gun rights.
And a lot of people didn't understand that. They thought, I was like, you need to worry about the guys in the blue hats.
Yeah. The blue helmets. Without a doubt. And I, to your point of keeping it simple, when you're having these kinds of discussions, I think they're great. We need to have these open discussions. And I truly believe the reason why that, family members are cutting each other off, friends are cutting each other off because of beliefs, whether it's political or religious beliefs, because everything is so polarizing these days, is because we haven't had these conversations. It's been taboo to have these conversations. You're not supposed to talk about this with other people. And this is why there's such a rift between everybody, because when you have a differing point of view and doesn't align with how you view, you don't know how to have a discussion about it and think about it yourself. Like I constantly say on our show, don't take what I have to say as true. Like I want you to see what I'm saying, be like, what is this crazy idiot talking about? And go and look it up yourself and come up with your own conclusion and your own opinion about the information presented. I don't want you to just regurgitate what I'm saying. Like everything that I talk about is not me just regurgitating information. This is truly my opinion based on the research that I have done. Could I be wrong? 1000%. I'm not claiming to be right about any of it. And when it comes to Christianity or even just a relationship with God, everybody has differing opinions. And what I say to them, I'm like, listen, do you believe God exists? And they say, yes. Okay, cool. We're on the same page here. Do you believe Jesus Christ is king? Yes. Okay. We're on the same page here. We can have a conversation and have the same outcome, but have a different way of getting there. And that be totally fine. And maybe, hey, you might have a piece of information that you can give me and I can now internalize that and use that for myself in my own relationship with God. Yeah. But like we all have friends, right? Like I use this as an example as well. Like even siblings, we can go as close to that. Like me and my sister are brother and sister, but we have a different relationship with my mother. We both have the same mom, but my sister has a different relationship with my mother than I have a different relationship with my mother. Doesn't mean that our relationships are wrong or bad. We have different relationships. They're both good relationships, but we both love our mother the same, right? Same thing with God. Like we both love God the same. We both pray to God. We both look for guidance and are thankful for God in every aspect of our life, but we see things a little differently, and that's totally fine. And we have to get out of the because you think differently, you're wrong mindset. We have to come together on the common ground that we both believe in God and we're both thankful for God being in our life.
Yeah. People are, looking for a hive mindset. They're wanting you to
Bingo.
believe what they believe because they're right. Well, we all think we're right, you know, even if we're willing to admit that. Because I said this to a congressman in Portland. We were in Portland. We were in Oregon, and I was talking to a congressman up there, and I said, when it comes to researching evidence, and one thing that people don't do is people don't usually look at it unbiasedly. They usually look to prove that they're right, or look to prove that you're wrong. They don't just follow the evidence. I said, I believe in follow the evidence. Remember, Galileo had that same problem when he was telling these guys, hey, look, we don't revolve. The sun doesn't revolve around us. We revolve around the sun. Here, look at this. Look through my telescope. They wouldn't even look through the telescope because they didn't want to be wrong. And I say, you know, we're supposed to just follow the evidence. Where does it lead you? You know, that's where I go. But he said something that I believe, but I've never actually put it into words. He said, but you should also be willing to be wrong. Always willing to be wrong. If you do that, you will stay humble, and you'll also be willing to learn and grow. Yes. And unfortunately, most people, it's not about growth. It's about being right. It's, you know, it's about knowing, even though it's not really true or not true. I mean, how many people do you talk to liberals, talk to even conservatives? They know, even though they don't actually know. You know, I was at J6. You know, I was 15 yards from the Capitol building. You know, I saw everything firsthand. I didn't do anything. I just stood there, you know, and I just watched everything. And then I got shot with, you know, rubber bullets and gas and everything else. And I saw that they were trying to start a riot. I saw my first, and with my experience as a police officer that was trained in riot control, I saw that these officers were trying to start a riot. You know, that's
exactly what they were doing.
And I saw players in the field that were acting not like everybody else. You know what I'm saying? And they were trying to push everybody to go inside. I'm like, why would they do this? Why is there a guy over there with a bullhorn trying to get everybody to go inside? I'm like, we're not, you know, but I saw this. But when I left, I got to deal with all these conservatives talking trash to everybody that was there. And I'm like, you don't even know what was going on. You just know what the media told you. And it's because they go with their own biasness. Well, this is wrong. I saw it on video. People actually get mad at me because I don't give an opinion about things. George Floyd, any of that. While the investigation's going, I don't share an opinion. And I'm like, listen, I'm not an idiot. I understand that there is different perspectives. There's different pieces of evidence. And if you don't have it all, you don't have a real opinion. You just have a biased outlook at something. And you could be wrong and you could hurt somebody. It's like people that will call somebody, a lot of truthers I have issues with that will call somebody satanic or a pedophile without having any information other than Brad Paisley ate at this one donut shop.
Yeah, Voodoo Donuts.
Yeah, I'm like, it's a legitimate donut shop. I would see it. I'm like, oh, I want a donut, and I would stop by there. Does that make me a pedophile?
Yeah, because not everybody knows that there's a connection between Voodoo Donuts and pedophilia. Like everybody just sees a donut, and the donuts look good.
Yeah. And so, I mean, you don't know, but people will jump to conclusions and start calling them this. I'm like, I was like, do you know what? If you ever get accused of a sexual crime, you will always live with that. Even if you're completely innocent, you will have people that will separate themselves, distance themselves from you because of that label. And they will never back down, even though you were told you were clear from it. You didn't have anything to do with it. It's because
that's how it always works.
And that's wrong. And so I won't accuse people of stuff unless I have enough information to say, yep. You know, I hear people saying Elon Musk is satanic. You know, a lot of people in the church I go to say that.
Well,
and they may be right.
He did wear a Satan costume, and his wife is a devout witch. And you know, there is evidence, but to say that he's satanic with certainty, that's my problem is when people speak in absolutes. Like this
Have you ever seen a Catholic and a Baptist get married? Yes. Yeah, you've seen people that an atheist and a Christian get married. Yes, I've seen that. I know of a liberal and a conservative that got married. I mean, she's so conservative. Her name is always MAGA or something on social media. It's just that it's not enough evidence unless somebody says and starts really shouting out that I believe in this.
Christian Bale.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, until you have that, I'm not going to say for certain, because he just may be completely ignorant of it. I mean, how many people have dressed as demons for Halloween or Satan or something? A lot of people, they don't look at it the same way. They're not Christians. He never claimed to be a biblical Christian,
No.
And so I don't, mother of God.
Here we go.
Yeah. I'm going to do this again. I don't know why it's doing this.
It's probably the FBI, because I'm on your show, dude. They love to fuck with me.
That very, very possible. Hold on.
They loved it. And we had Stuart Rhodes on, the founder of the Oath Keepers. We just had Chris Worrell on twice. They're up our ass.
I didn't actually hear any of that. I took my headphone off. What'd you say?
I said we had Stuart Rhodes on recently. He called from federal prison. The founder of the Oath Keepers. We had Chris Worrell on twice recently. They're not fans of ours.
Oh yeah. I ever since I went to J6, I seem to have problems buying a gun. So I completely understand.
So it's very weird. So I was a convicted felon for many, many years for marijuana.
Yeah.
And I just got it expunged recently. I've always purchased my guns through family members and things like that are living with me. So they're in the house, and haven't had an issue, but I'm about to go and apply for my CCW. I'm very interested to see how that's going to go.
But to be honest, I don't care about concealed carry because it's unconstitutional. It is. If you have to do anything to practice your right, it's not a right, it's a privilege. If it costs $1, it becomes a privilege.
Yep. And plus $50 and I have to take a class.
Yeah. In a lot of places, it's several hundred, if not thousand, like New York,
Yep. Oh yeah.
Jersey, that area.
Oh yeah.
It's like,
it's impossible to get a gun, let alone carry.
Yeah. And even if you have one, there's so many rules. It's like you can never carry it anywhere. But me, I'm blessed that Oklahoma finally became a constitutional carry state, and people still don't understand it, and they'll still get their conceal. I was like, why? You don't need it. Which I never got one anyway. I always carried anyway. I have a 9 and a 45 that I carry all the time. I have a magnet in my truck that right under my steering wheel, my 45 is there.
I have one of those too. Yeah, dude, it's really wild. I mean, the FBI, I didn't go to January 6th. I was in Vegas.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't get on a plane because I wasn't wearing a mask. That was my whole thing. I probably would have went if there was no mask mandates.
Yeah.
But I wasn't getting on a plane. I had a lot of friends that went. I knew a lot of people that went to January 6th. But one of my buddies who went, he got a visit over the holidays, this past holiday season. So we're talking 3 years after the event. Yeah. He got a visit from the FBI, and they asked him about his day and everything that he did while he was there. And then they pulled up a picture of my mugshot from when I got arrested when I was 21 and go, "Do you know this guy?" Asking about me.
Wow.
And I didn't go. I was in Vegas. Like, I was literally in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And they're asking questions about me. Why? For what reason? Like, I wasn't there. I wasn't part of the event. I watched it on my TV in my living room in sunny Las Vegas. It was 60 degrees while you guys are freezing your dicks off in Washington.
I'll tell you, as formal law enforcement, I have never seen, unless there was corruption involved with the cop, I've never seen a cop look for a crime and look for a perpetrator for that crime. There's a crime, and then you find the perpetrator for that crime. But you would have to, for a case like that, that's what they're doing. They're like, well, you just because you're there doesn't mean you're breaking the law. So
nope.
They're looking for the crime. You know,
they're
what did
asking.
you do? Were you there? Did you do anything? You know, it's like, that's stupid. It wasn't a crime for me to be there. So why am I having to? They were looking for me at the time. And then a couple of years later, the Tulsa World tried getting a hold of me, and I refused to talk to them. I was like, that'd be like talking to CNN or MSNBC.
Yep.
No matter what I say, they're going to change it to say something else.
Well, that's what I said to my buddy. I said, you don't have to talk to them, dude. Like they have no legal authority to ask you any questions. Like you don't have to say a damn thing. You could tell them to kick rocks if you want.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I do. I'm like, I'm not talking to anybody because everything I say can and will be used against me
without a doubt.
And what they will do is they will nitpick and tear things apart and make it seem like I'm saying one thing. And anybody that talks to me knows that I have a tendency to say things. And it sounds different than what it really meant, you know,
because I'm retarded sometimes.
Yeah, like I just say, like what it really meant is like what I really meant.
Yeah,
I say the wrong word all the time. I literally didn't know how to learn how to communicate until I was in my 20s.
Yeah, I'm borderline retarded, so I'm with you.
I tell people, you know, because I was diagnosed. Well, it was Asperger's, but now they say everybody's autistic instead of Asperger's. But still, and people ask me what that was. I'm like, you've seen the movie Goonies?
Yep.
You remember Sloth, the one?
Of course.
You know,
hey, you guys.
Exactly. I tell people, I'm like, well, if you get Sloth and get Einstein, and they have a love child, that's Asperger's. That's me. Sometimes I'm retarded. Sometimes I'm a genius. That's that. And when people get mad, you can't say the R word. I'm like, first of all, it has been taken out of the medical dictionary since 2014, including the government quit recognizing it as a word to describe people with Down syndrome. So it's not even a word anymore that way. I was like, no. However, if you want to use it that way, I was like, first of all, are you being a bigot against these people? Are you really using that word to describe these people? That's wrong. I was like, but if you are, I was like, let me tell you, I've got issues. I've got mental cognitive communication issues. So these are my people. So therefore I can say the word.
Yep.
You know, I mean, it's just, you know, of course I'm just grasping at straws. I don't care. You know,
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm kind of retarded.
That's how I feel all the time. That's how I feel all the time. And that button gets used often on our show. No, it's fascinating to me. And they went after my buddy. He's a young kid. Like he's in his early 20s. And I met him, actually, it's funny. I met him playing video games, like on a gaming channel. I've since met him in real life, and he's a good friend of mine now. But I met him when, you know, I was in my 20s and he was like 17 years old playing video games. So now he's in his 20s, and he's from California. He's from Compton, California. Like he's from the hood of California, of LA. Like he's this little Mexican kid. And, he was very liberal. He was a very liberal person. And through the years of me just red pilling him on the internet over the game, just telling him what's really going on, he started to realize that what was going on was wrong. And he went by himself from California all the way to Washington, D.C. just so he can go to the event and see Donald Trump speak by himself. Like he was 21 years old. He had just turned 21, went over. He might even not even have been 21. But he went over by himself to go and see the event for himself. And they went after him and they're asking him questions about me. Like it's fucking wild. It is wild what they're doing. And it's sad. I mean, this is the state of affairs that we're in. We had, like I said, we had Chris Worrell on the show, and he didn't go into the Capitol. He's being charged for pepper spraying a cop that didn't exist. There was no cops within his area, and they're saying he assaulted a police officer with a deadly weapon. It's an imaginary police officer. He's being sentenced on the 18th, going in for 10 years, 1 month is the minimum sentence. And the judge already said they never sentence under minimum. So most likely he'll get over the minimum. And he's got fighting non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So when he was in the DC gulag, he was in for over 200 days, and they refused to give him his cancer treatment. He's been battling non-Hodgkin's lymphoma since 2007, and he was on a good regimen where he was able to keep his cancer at bay and was at stage 1. Within the 200 plus days that he was in jail and they were refusing to give him his medical treatment, the warden was held in contempt by the judge for not giving him his medical treatment. But he went from a stage 1 to a stage 3 cancer in that 200 plus days. And now he's going in for 10 years, 1 month, and no guarantee of any type of medical treatment. When he goes in there, they've been the January 6th prisoners are being treated like garbage. They're, poisoning their food.
How did he plead guilty or something?
No, he didn't take a plea deal.
But there's no evidence.
He went to trial.
But to be honest, I mean, it's kind of like the George Floyd thing, whether the police officer was guilty or not. I'm not going to argue that. I could, but I'm not going to, because it's a moot point at this time. But you can't be charged of a crime that you didn't commit, that didn't even exist.
Nope. He just sprayed pepper spray into the air.
Well, like with George Floyd, the officer got convicted of 1st-degree murder. Well, it wasn't even 1st-degree murder. At best,
it was an overdose.
It was well, I mean, even if you said the officer was at fault, let's assume the overdose didn't happen, even though everybody knows it happened.
Yes.
Let's assume that it was the officer being over aggressive, right? Mm-hmm. That's manslaughter. That's not 1st-degree murder.
Yes, very true.
So he should have been guilty of, if he was guilty of anything, guilty of manslaughter. But they wanted to appease the public because they're like, if he just got manslaughter, there's going to be riots. Well, that shouldn't have anything to do with the way you do things. But that's the way it is now.
Of course,
it's getting now where they care more about the way the public's going to react. So these protests by BLM and stuff, they actually have changed laws, the way the justice system works.
You're guilty until you're proven innocent now, instead of the other way around. It's no longer innocent until proven guilty.
And I'm not an optimist, but I do believe that we create our own realities. And what I see happening is that it will get better, but we have to hurt so bad that we start seeing things.
That's happening as we speak, in my opinion. Exactly. I think that's literally playing out right in front of our face.
And we have people that never would have voted conservative, never would have voted Trump, and now they're voting for Trump.
It's amazing to see, Josh. Never in my wildest dreams did I ever think that we would be here, and all glory to God, 100%. Because there's nothing that you and I could have said in conversation, or even on a big platform where we're talking to thousands of people, been able to reach a lot of these people with our message and get them to see the light and see what's going on for what it is. It's all because of the actions that are going on right now.
Yeah.
Because of this administration, because of the exposure, like Sounds of Freedom and human trafficking being a huge spotlight right now. Like all these things are now at the forefront of everybody's minds that would have never been so. If, like I always tell people, like, imagine Donald Trump won in 2020. Excuse me. Imagine he won in 2020. What do you think would have happened from 2021 to where we're at right now? How do you think the timeline would have played out? Because I'll tell you, it wouldn't be high gas prices. There wouldn't be crazy inflation. There wouldn't be pending World War III. We wouldn't have pulled out of Afghanistan and had 13 of our soldiers killed in that way. It would have been done properly. Okay. We wouldn't have all of these things that are looming over our head right now that are waking people up in record numbers, like record numbers. Joe Biden's cognitive function, the treatment of Donald Trump and the indictments, where there's a complete opposite reaction when it comes to Hunter Biden and his crimes. That polarization is waking people up, and it's backfiring bigly on the establishment. And if Donald Trump had gotten into office, Josh, it would have been 24/7 orange man bad, China virus this, China virus that, blaming him for everything. And now the media is trying every which way possible to blame Donald Trump for things that are going on right now. And optically, he's not in the office. Has no control over anything. He's playing golf. He's hanging out. And they can't do it. And those blames of Donald Trump are not hitting like they once did when he was in office. Yeah. They can't blame him for these things. And now that optic of them trying to do that is also in turn waking people up. They're like, wait a second, why are we blaming Donald Trump for this right now? Like, he's got nothing to do with what's going on. Like, why is this his fault? And if Donald Trump had won, we'd be seeing none of this. And not just that, let's just say Mike Pence did what he was supposed to do and sent the electors back to the states, and the election was eventually end up overturned. Let's just say that happened. We wouldn't be seeing all the election fraud, and the overwhelming majority of the country believe that the elections are rigged. Like, I've been saying this since 2004, Josh. John Kerry and George Bush are both part of the Skull and Bones secret society. That secret society, they take an oath. That oath supersedes the oath they take while they're in office. And they're running against each other in two political parties for the same position.
Yeah.
They're part of the same club.
As much as I don't like Al Gore should have won.
He should have, but he again, that whole thing, it's wild to me how that played out and that they even allowed it to get to that point. Because again, if Al Gore is clearly part of the establishment, he's clearly part of that club. If Al Gore had
George Bush,
not as much as George Bush, absolutely. George Bush is the Bush family is a huge hierarchy in this cabal. And Poppy Bush, his father, was a shot caller up until his death, and I think his death was a huge symbol that tides are turning, in my opinion. If you go back to the letters that were handed to all the wives at that funeral, I'm still very excited to see what may come from those letters, if we're not watching it play out as we speak.
Yeah.
But the Bush family is very heavily involved in the 16-year plan and the plan to one world government and new world order that they've been trying to push on us for years now, and scrambling to get this digital currency. And aliens are now in the picture, which I think is going to be part of Blue Beam and bringing this one world government situation. And the Bushes are a huge player in that. But it would have been a win-win either way. If Gore had won, they would still have control. Same thing with 2008. If McCain had won instead of Obama, they're still carrying out and doing what they wanted to do. Yeah. It's just a different leader in front. That's what they've been doing forever. And this is why I'm so glad people are seeing Ron DeSantis for what he truly is. He's not a true conservative, a true America First patriot. They used his popularity, and this is what they're very good at. They're very good at, whether it's celebrities or athletes, they find these people who have gained a lot of popularity and they corrupt them, whether it's through blackmail, whether it's through money and fame and fortune, or whether it's through threats. They use those people to carry out their agenda. They do this all of the time. They've been doing it forever. So they probably saw a guy like Ron DeSantis. His wife wants to be Jackie Onassis, wants to be the next Jackie Kennedy. And in the White House, and they use those political aspirations to be like, hey, listen, we'll make all of that happen. Here's money. Here's everything that you need. Just come on our side and work for us. And that's what they do. And people are seeing this now. Like 5 years ago, people wouldn't have seen this that quickly. It would have taken them a long time till the wool was pulled over their heads. And they're like, wait a second, he's not what we were sold. Like, for example, Eye Patch McCain, Dan Crenshaw, everybody loved him in the beginning. Me being one of them. I was like, oh, this guy's badass. Like, we need this guy in. Very quickly, we realized he's part of the establishment, voting for wars, voting for red flag laws, like doing all these things that he said he was going to be fighting against. And they do this all of the time. And people, it used to take them a long time to pick it up. Now it's happening overnight. People are understanding, like, hey, there's these players that are wolves in sheep's clothing. They're pretending to be what they're not. And it's glorious to see. I'm so happy that people are aware of this stuff now.
Yeah. When I left on I actually left on the 7th. We stayed there that night and then left the morning of the 7th. I was so disheartened. But again, I like to look at nothing happens to you, everything happens for you. Mm-hmm. I realized that before this time, I've thought the swamp was the liberal left. I honestly thought that's who they were. But then I learned, no, the swamp is 95% of the whole government.
Yep. Both sides.
That's what started making me start researching and realizing, wait a second, it's unconstitutional to have any government organization make laws that the head was not elected. So you can't,
and supersedes the Constitution.
Yeah, you can't do that. There's a lot of things that were violating the Constitution. And I'm like, there's got to be, a huge thing. Of course, there were so many people, trying to, especially on the truther side, trying to say, well, the military is doing this and that stuff. I'm like, but there's no evidence of that. I was like, it may be true. It's kind of like Bigfoot. I use this analogy. I'm like, listen, I never say Bigfoot doesn't exist, but I don't say he does exist. I don't have any evidence either way. Mm-hmm. Well, when it comes to that stuff, I don't have enough evidence either way to say that it's true. It'd be nice, it'd be nice if Trump really was the leader of the corporation of America. I don't know
of the republic, not the corporation.
Yeah, sorry, the republic, and we're a corporation that's going bankrupt. And I've watched people talking about that all the time. Not even true.
Dr. Jan Halper Hayes just had a great video on that.
Yeah, and it's just there's a lot of really interesting stuff. And I'm saying I don't know if it's true or not true. I can just have an opinion about what is true, and then I can have my I guess push my energy out there that's saying this is what I want to happen.
This is what I see on the chessboard and how I see it playing out. I may be like, this is my big issue is when people do those things and they talk about how they see things playing out, they speak in absolutes. Like they speak like, this is how it's going to happen. Yeah. I know exactly how it's going to happen. And I'm the only one that's right. And people get caught up in that. And it's okay. I've learned it's okay to still speculate, but you have to let people know, like, this is my opinion of how I think things will play out. I may not be right, but this is how I see things going. And to your point, there is no actual proof of a lot of these things that people say, but there is a lot of evidence that points towards that. There's a lot of evidence that points towards that. And I've been saying constantly that I call these people the masters of the universe, because it's not just politicians. It's business executives, it's bankers. There's so many people that are involved in this evil, and a lot of the politicians. Vanguard, BlackRock, the Rothschilds, the Rockefeller family. We can go on and on. The Pacers. We can go on and on about these 13 bloodlines and things like that. But I call them the masters of the universe because they literally control not just politics and governments. They control entertainment. They control agriculture. Like, our food industry is so fucked right now, and that's a huge issue. They're literally poisoning us. So we're dependent on big pharma. They control entertainment. They control the financial district. They control real estate. Literally every aspect of humanity, they have their grubby little paws in. And we're battling the masters of the universe. But what I will say is that I think that they no longer have the control that they once had. I used to think that they controlled everything and they were able to dictate how scenarios would play out, whether it be through false flags, whether it be through the media. They were able to totally control and shape the narrative for many, many years, even into Trump's administration. We could see how they were able to literally brainwash people. And this is why I don't get angry at the people that don't see what's going on like I used to. I used to get very angry at these people, but I realized that they've been brainwashed with trillions of dollars of psychological operations to get them to think a certain way and have Stockholm syndrome. But before I get on a tangent on that and do what you do and go all over the place, the reason why I think that they don't have the control that they once had, and it is possible that Joe Biden is the president of the corporation where Donald Trump is the leader of the republic, I go back to a couple things. Excuse me. One, going back to his inauguration, let's just go on what we can 100% prove. We're not going to go on the speculation of the timelines. Like, we can go into like, that it was aired in Spain 3 hours earlier. The sunlight was changing. There's people on the roof of the building across where the inauguration was being held, and they were filming it. It was foggy and no one was there. We can go into all that, but that's all speculation. Yeah. What we can prove is Joe Biden is the first president of the United States to not take a military transport to his own inauguration. He took a private plane. He's the first president to ever do so. That can be proven. Okay, that doesn't happen. Military code is very real. They don't break protocol ever. Like, that's not something that ever happens. They went to Arlington Cemetery and they gave the 7-gun salute. They only give that for foreign dignitaries or people that died in office or while in service. That's not normal. The National Guard turned their back on Joe Biden's motorcade. That doesn't happen. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris flew in the same plane together. Very against protocol, never happens. It happened twice. These are all things that can be proven. Okay. Then you go into what's going on with the war. We know that both sides of the aisle are part of the military industrial complex. We know there's a lot of money in war. BlackRock, Vanguard, Raytheon, Halliburton, they all make tons and tons, trillions of dollars off of war. There's a reason why our country's been at war for over 75% of our existence. They want money. Yeah. And they've been trying very hard to get us into this war. Now, we also know that these people, they don't care about money as far as spending it to accomplish a goal or push a false flag event or get us into war. They don't care about lives either. We've seen it with 9/11. They killed thousands of innocent Americans just so they can get into a war with Afghanistan and Iraq to get their resources. There's so many reasons as to why they were doing it. We go into Stargates, things like that, but so many reasons. The Federal Reserve. We know that they're willing to do things like that, kill innocent people, destroy billion-dollar buildings and pieces of equipment just to carry out their agenda. Well, what did they do when the Ukraine war started kicking off? What did the media start doing? They started saying, there's this brave soldier, the ghost of Kiev, is just flying through the sky, taking out all of these Russian planes. And previously, if they truly had the control that they once had, Josh, they would have had a real jet plane up there blowing up other planes and having them fall out of the sky into the cities of Ukraine so people could catch it on their cell phones so they could push this propaganda. They'd have no problem doing any of that. But they had to use a video game footage to make up and prop up this ghost of Kiev. They literally used video game footage. And then they moved on to the next one. They said, Snake Island, the Russians were going to take it over, and they refused to surrender, so they died on their swords. And they put this huge glorification story up there. Come to find out, nope, no one died. They all went home to their wives that night, and it was all bullshit Fugazi story. The previous masters of the universe would have dropped a fucking nuke on the thing and not even thought twice about it. They would have blown everybody up and said, look at all these people that died. And so to me, that shows that they are grasping at straws. They don't have the control that they once had. They also, what are they doing with Joey Bag of Donuts? Joey Bag of Donuts, he has clearly had presidential aspirations for years. He's ran for president 3 times. This current time that he won, and 2 previous times in the 80s. Yeah. He was completely embarrassed the 2 previous times for plagiarizing, lying about his college degrees and all these things that he got caught doing. But he clearly had presidential aspirations. Yeah. Now, I don't have presidential aspirations. I have no interest in that. But if I did, there's a few perks to becoming the president of the United States. One of them is sitting in the Oval Office and doing your work from the Oval Office and taking your meetings and things like that. But another perk is picking the desk that you get to sit behind. There's 3 choices. Me personally, I would choose the Resolute desk. But these are very historic artifacts in the United States history, especially the White House and everything that comes along with it. You're telling me that a guy that had as many political aspirations as Joey Bag of Donuts did is going to do all of his meetings in a studio across the street from the Oval Office and not in the Oval Office? Your argument that the China virus is the reason why they're doing it doesn't make sense, because there's still dozens and dozens of people in that studio. Why aren't we in the Oval Office taking our meetings? Why aren't we doing it there instead? It makes absolutely no sense. Like, I'd like to put my feet up on the Resolute desk and have these conversations with people because I earned this spot. This is something that I've been trying to do my entire life become president of the United States. Now I'm here and you're telling me I can't be in the Oval. It makes no sense. Yeah. It doesn't compute. And if they were truly in control and they truly had the control that they once had, he would be in the Oval Office because optically that looks so much better. Why is he not? So that doesn't make any sense to me. All of these things. And then another thing, Donald Trump signed an executive order having to do with election and foreign interference into elections. Why did Joe Biden re-sign and extend that executive order? And that there's going to be another extension coming up September 12th. So in a month, he's going to have an opportunity to extend it again. I'd be very interested to see what he does with that. But why did he extend that executive order if they're truly in control? Why didn't they shut down John Durham's investigation if they're truly in control? Why didn't they do those things? Because they're not in the control that they once had. They may still have a little bit of semblance of control, but they're clearly not in the power position that they once had because they'd be acting much differently. It's almost as if right now they're reacting rather than creating the reactions, because that's who they used to be. They used to be the ones who created the reactions and created the situations. Now they're literally news comes out about Hunter Biden, and the very next day, Donald Trump has a new indictment. Every single time, like clockwork. It's every single time. So again, they don't have the control that they once had, which leads me to believe that there's other powers at play that are moving pieces on the chessboard. And I go back to history. That's what I always go back to. JFK is one of my favorite presidents. I don't know. Teddy Roosevelt and JFK are two of my favorites. Yeah. I can never decide on who I like the best just because Teddy Roosevelt may be the most badass human being ever to walk the face of the earth. And JFK is the last president to try to take down this deep state cabal and destroy it. And I always go to the situation of, well, JFK was trying to do this. There's zero chance you can get me to believe this, that he was a rogue agent doing it all by himself. There's zero chance that was the case. He was definitely working with people inside of intelligence, whether it be military, CIA, or any of the other organizations that were actually patriots. Because I also refuse to believe, I'm not one of those people that the entire FBI is corrupt. The entire CIA is corrupt. All of these people are evil. All of these people are in on it. There are people that are behind. They may be the minority. They may not be a vocal piece of these organizations or even in a leadership role, but they do love this country. They do want the best and they do want to restore this republic. They just don't see how yet. Yeah. And I'm in a belief that the people that JFK was working with, the reason why JFK was killed in such a public way was a direct message to all of those people working with JFK. Like, hey, this is what we could do to a sitting U.S. president, literally in broad fucking daylight, and then get people to believe our bullshit narrative that bullets do 180-degree turns and kill the president. And people literally bold-faced believe this for decades. If we could do that, we could do anything to you. So like, you better just go away and stop doing what you're doing. I truly believe that was the message and why they did what they did to JFK in such a public way. And those people didn't just go away. Like they obviously they stepped back and stopped doing what they were doing, but they had to bide their time and figure out when the best opportunity to attack was.
Hey, Nixon opening his mouth is what got him.
Bingo. Yes,
he's on video or on audio saying, "I know who killed JFK." I didn't even respond. And a week or 2 weeks later, I think it was a week later, Watergate happens, and then we for all these years we're sitting there thinking, 60 years. I don't know how long it's been, but
a long time. Yeah,
thinking that Nixon was this horrible guy, and then come to find out, no, he was like the most popular president ever. I mean, like he won like by 80% or something. I mean, it was huge.
It was huge. And I had the opportunity. So Roger Stone is a good friend of my co-host, Alan Jacoby. Yeah. He's very good friends with Roger Stone, and Roger's been on the show. And I had the opportunity to ask Roger about that exact audio tape. Yeah. And he's like, 100. They set him up with Watergate because he was going to blow the whistle on JFK. That was 100% fact. Yeah. And it's wild to think. So, JFK tried to take down this deep state cabal, and I don't think that he kept everything from his wife, Jackie. I think Jackie was very much in the know of what he was trying to do as far as destabilizing corporation, destabilizing this cabal of evil fucks that are destroying our country and destroying the CIA, etc. I think she was very much in the know of that. And this is why JFK Jr. never said, hey, guys, the Warren Commission is real. Like, let's just, stop with the conspiracies, respect my father and his death, this, that, and the other. He always questioned the Warren Commission. He had people on his magazine to question the Warren Commission and talk about his father's death. And I think that's because his mother was very much in his ear as a young kid about who killed his father, who his father was. And I truly believe JFK Jr. was supposed to be who Donald Trump is.
Yeah.
I truly believe that JFK Jr. was going to run for office. He was going to win, and he was going to try to finish what his father started, and they killed him before it. I'm not one of those lunatics, and if you are one of those lunatics, I think you're an idiot that thinks JFK Jr. is alive. I think you're fucking retarded, and you make us look bad and make it very difficult for us to actually speak on things that are going on. But what I do also think, what I do know is that Donald Trump and JFK Jr. were very, very close. They were very, very close friends. And I always use this analogy. I say, Josh, imagine you're JFK Jr., right? I'm Donald Trump. We're boys. We're friends. Yeah. I'd feel comfortable enough to be like, hey, Josh, like, hey, man, there's tons of stories about your father swirling around. And there's so many rumors and questions about his death. And I got to ask, like, we're close enough friends. You don't have to answer if you don't feel comfortable, but we're close enough that I feel comfortable. I can ask you this question. What do you know about your father's death? What do you know about what happened? Like, if I was Donald Trump and you were JFK Jr., he was probably comfortable enough to ask JFK Jr. about his father in their close relation. They were very, very close friends. And I wouldn't be surprised if JFK Jr. told him what he truly believed happened to his father. And this is part of the reason why Donald Trump was able to keep his elbows clean and rub elbows with these people this many years and not get caught up, because he was aware of the evil that was surrounding him because of what JFK Jr. had told him. Yeah. And this is why he probably knew that they killed him and murdered him. And this is why he stepped up out of his cushy lifestyle and took on the challenge of what's going on. Like, hey, they murdered my friend. They're actively trying to destroy this country. I know who these people are and what they're about because of what he told me. I don't know all of it, but I get the gist of it. And he really found out how big and deep this swamp is once he got in there. But this is why he was like, all right, now's the time. And it's very possible that people inside the military came to him and was like, this is the time that we need you to run, whether it be people like General Flynn or Admiral Rogers. And I always go to the story that Donald Trump tells about Admiral Raising Cane. Have you ever heard this story at one of his rallies?
I don't know. I went to the Tulsa rally, but I wasn't able to listen very much because I was working.
So I watch every single one of Donald Trump's rallies. I don't miss him. He says the same thing at a lot of them, but I still watch him just because I love the energy. It brings you back to when this country, it reminds me that there's still people in this country that love this country for what it is and what it stands for. Because the media doesn't show that. But I watch a lot of them, and in almost every rally, he tells a story about ISIS and al-Baghdadi and General Raising Cane. So he goes, when I got in office, I went up to all of the generals and the Joint Chiefs staff. I was like, listen, how long will it take to destroy ISIS? Like, we've been there forever. Like, how long is it going to take? He's like, we have the biggest, the baddest military, the best equipment. Like, how long is it going to take? And General Mattis, it's going to take 6 years, sir. It's going to take 6 years. And Donald Trump is like, 6 years, that's not, well, I can't have that. We need to do it quicker. Like, well, sir, it's going to take, that's how long it's going to take. It's going to take us 6 years. He's like, well, you've been here for over 10. You're telling me it's going to take 6 more. That's ridiculous. So he went he did this surprise visit to Iraq to go visit all the soldiers. And he's like, oh, this is a perfect opportunity. I'm going to talk to some of the generals that are actually boots on the ground. I'm going to talk to them. So the first thing that he did, that's exactly what he did. He went up and sat down with the generals, and one of the generals was General Raising Cane is his name. Yeah. And he's like, General Raising Cane's a great, great man. And I asked him, he's like, General, he goes, how long do you think it would take to destroy ISIS? And he's like, sir, I don't have an opinion on that. That's not my position. I have orders that I have to follow. He's like, well, I'm the president of the United States, and I'd really respect your opinion on how long you think it would take. He's like, sir, I'd have it done in 2 weeks. Donald Trump's like, what? 2 weeks? Like, I'm being told 6 years by the generals in Washington, and you're telling me 2 weeks. He's like, sir, it'd probably be done in less than 2 weeks, and we probably have time left over to get a couple beers when we're done. That's how quick we can have it done, sir. He's like, oh, well, show me. Like, I need you to show me how we can do it in 2 weeks. So he shows him how it'd be done in 2 weeks. He's like, all right, let's do it. Let's get it done. And he's like, within 2 weeks, al-Baghdadi was dead and died like a dog. And he's like, I went to these generals and I couldn't understand why the generals in Washington were telling me 6 years and these guys boots on the ground were able to get it done in such a short period of time, literally 2 weeks. It didn't make sense. So he started to realize that I had to work with outside of the generals in Washington and work with the generals that are boots on the ground. And I wouldn't be surprised if he kept General Raising Cane very close to him, because General Raising Cane was like, listen, it's not my position. I don't like to speak out of turn. There's orders that I follow, but I wouldn't be doing it the way that they're doing it right now. And that's the problem with a lot of these bureaucrats and these people that are inside of Washington. They're controlled. They are doing things for their agenda, where the guys that are actually boots on the ground and actually doing the operations, they're soldiers. They're following orders. They can't. Military code is so strict and real that they can't just go and do what they want, even though they disagree with what the orders are. Yeah. They can't. So because he got the order from Donald Trump, he was able to do it and execute it. So I truly believe that there's people like General Raising Cane, whether it is General Flynn and Admiral Rogers, or it's other people inside of the military that are actively working, that have been actively working since the 60s, since JFK, to restore a republic. And now, because of technology, because of things that are going on, they're able to catch these people in the act. I mean, we can see how comfortable that these evil fucks have gotten over the years. Hillary Clinton was using Blackberries and Gmails. Like, the only reason you would do something like that and commit the crimes that they were committing in such an open way and so brazen is if you never thought you'd be caught. You never thought you'd get in trouble for doing it. That's the only reason you do it that way. And they got caught, and now we're using that technology against them. We're using all of those text messages, those emails are coming back to haunt them. Maybe not right now, but I think they truly eventually will. And what Dr. Jan Halper Hayes said in her interview the other day, she did another interview over the weekend talking about Operation Mockingbird and MK Ultra, which is fucking wild. And she's a very well-respected political psychologist. I did some research on her. She's a very well-respected political psychologist, and Donald Trump retruthed her statement, co-signing it. But she literally said that she's part of a DOD task force, and if you think the Space Force and the DOD don't have the real results to our election, you're kidding yourselves. And really think about it. Like, with the technology that we have, there's no way that that they don't have the true information and the true results. And she even said, she's like, he didn't release it right away because it would have caused a civil war. It would have caused mass outrage. Like, if they started arresting these people and holding them accountable, people wouldn't understand. Now, fast forward these couple years, Josh, what were we just talking about? People are waking up because of the actions. Now, people are getting to the point where, like, oh, nothing is going to happen. They're never going to be held accountable. And I used to get frustrated at that. No longer. The reason why I don't get frustrated is because now at least they see the corruption. They see it's here. And if I happen to be right and I happen to be on the right track, and these people do get held accountable, and there are patriots working inside of our military, inside of these organizations to restore a republic, and they do get held accountable, they're not going to riot and revolt. They're going to be like, oh, fucking finally, they're doing something. Oh, no.
To point out what you were saying, it's a Stoic principle that goes all the way back to Plato. It's allow people to find out for themselves. If they come up with the answer themselves, they will believe it more. They will be more involved. If you tell them the answers, it doesn't do anything. In fact, a lot of times it does do the opposite. That's why most of the time I just ask questions to people, like on Facebook and stuff. I don't tell them what to believe. You know, I'm like, okay, well, answer this. And then I realize they don't know as much as they think they know. But sometimes it's not good enough. They still don't. They want to believe what they want to believe so bad. That's why we still have people that still refuse that Joe Biden is an idiot, you know.
They're very few and far between, and the media props those people up. So it seems like there's a lot more, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But you're right. They still exist, and they still defend them. I get them in my social media comments all the time, and it's hilarious. But again, they're, in my opinion, they're brainwashed. The powers that be, the masters of the universe, are very, very skilled on the human psyche. They know how the human psyche works. They know how to emotionally and mentally manipulate us through television, through programming, through culture. They're very, very skilled at this, and they've been doing it and practicing this craft for decades, if not centuries. And I used to, like I said earlier, I used to get very frustrated at these people that still think that Joe Biden's a good president. And I still think they're idiots and retards. But at the same time, I'm not angry with them. I realize that trillions of dollars have been spent to get them to think the way that they're thinking, to be so brainwashed and not question the narrative and govern me harder, daddy people, that I feel I've now become, I've gotten to the point where I feel like I'm very blessed. And I thank God for the gift of vision and the gift to be able to see through this bullshit and not be one of the people that has been brainwashed by the system that has spent trillions of dollars since the day we were born, since birth, to brainwash us. Before we can even remember, they've been programming us to think a certain way and act a certain way. And I truly believe it's only by God's grace that we've been given the gift of sight and be able to see through that trillions of dollars of brainwashing that they've tried to. It's truly a blessing. It's a gift and a curse at the same time, because it is, for many years, it was very difficult.
Hey guys, I want to personally thank everyone for liking and sharing my videos. If you want to continue to see my content, all you got to do is press that subscribe button, and I'll notify you as soon as a new video comes out. I don't get paid for any of this. So if you want to buy some of my merch, like my shirts, like Jesus is a Badass or my Don't Be a Dick shirt, you can easily go to my merch store, which is at sogtv.org, which I will have it in the description at every video. So push that, go buy yourself a shirt. I appreciate it. Have a blessed day, and I will see you at the next episode. Thank you.